Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we have the Eachine EX105, another brushed quadcopter, and as you can see here it comes fully assembled. It even came with the props on. We have a familiar camera here on the front with this relatively long nose. Yeah, there's some dirt on the front. I've been out flying it. There's some dirt on the front here, but we've got the long nose and the ears, and they've actually used the ears to their advantage here because they've used some sort of adhesive here on the sides to glue the camera in place. I was concerned that that adhesive had gotten on the top plate, but I found that it did not. So I don't know if they glue the camera in with the top plate there or not. This is the FR Sky version, and you can see, if I get this lined up just right, you might be able to see the button for bind, which is right in there. You could probably figure out a way to press that and plug your battery in to get it into bind mode. But I ended up having to take the top plate off in order to get the receiver bound up, and that's when I discovered that the top plate on mine was not glued down. So that's a good thing. While we're talking about that glue, it's also going to limit our ability to create camera angle. So if you want to fly faster forward, a natural way to do that is to tilt the camera back, and your eyes will find horizon, and you'll tilt more and more and more, and you'll be flying faster and faster and faster. And we have space for that down here, and you can see on the bottom I've already added my Duralock, but there's this gap right in here to where this connector can actually lean back as well. So we're not going to get much camera angle with it attached the way it is, but as you work into that, you can work on disconnecting this adhesive and using maybe some foam tape or something to lean it back. It looks like we're going to have to shift the antenna a bit, and you can see there's some foam tape here keeping the antenna connected to the receiver. You could probably also, Randall Houston pointed out this on my last video, you could also take off this heat shrink to gain maybe a half a gram of weight, so half a gram more thrust. Yeah, if you went that route, you could also desolder this antenna and just put on a CP, or you could chop off those lobes if we've got enough distance and make this into a linear antenna as well. If we look at the bottom, we see that they did take some care in trying to make sure that the motor wires stay on the arms, although this isn't going to work very well. It's stayed on for my flight so far, but I think a more robust adhesive would work better, or if you have some small rubber bands, you could run those over there and wrap them once or twice, and that's probably more of a long-term solution. We've got some foam feet here on the bottom, which really aren't going to serve much of a purpose because the battery is going to be on the bottom. If you want to, you can try to put the battery on the top. As you can see here, if you're very careful with your mounting, I had this earlier, you can get this on there, and with just a little bit of prop clearance, but really it's not the best spot for it. And I've been flying it with the battery on the bottom. I took the battery and I just stick it on here, and then I put this lead around back that way. Keeps everything nice and tidy. This battery, you do get one in the box, at least I got one. It has a Eachine sticker on it, 600 mAh, 25C, so you can probably get some extra thrust with some alternate batteries. And also in the box we have our Velcro strap, which I did use when I was flying it. I wrapped it around the whole thing. The combination of the low-profile Duralock and this little bit of Velcro worked just fine. It's not great. I mean, you can tell they probably had a 2-mile-long strand of this, and they just cut off a little bit and threw it in the box. We also have some alternate props. You'll see that these are different. These are more like the Ladybird props. They might be Ladybird props, but we'll never know. These are the Hubsan style, and they have the cups, but depending upon the shaft length, those cups might not go all the way down to the motors, and we might still need to drill these out. You can see that I haven't drilled mine out yet. One thing about this antenna being so high and proud is that when we do land upside down, or when we crash upside down, we don't have much of a risk of landing on those motor stems so that they pop the end caps. So we have a little bit of a natural safeguard there. Also in the box we've got 2 pieces of Velcro, which I prefer the low profile Duralock. I get that from finetape.com, the cheapest source that I've found. And we have a battery charger, a USB battery charger. These are fine if they get you started, but I would highly encourage you to get a single cell battery charger like the high-tech. I think it's also been rebranded. JJRC and SkyRC and a number of other places have it. And let me show it to you here real quick. So this is the single cell charger I use all the time. You can see it's branded high-tech. And I've got my little leads in here, and you're probably wondering, what are these for? These are for your Tiny Whoop batteries. The plugs on here aren't exact as the plugs on the batteries, and Benedict over at Micromoto Warehouse found that they were just off by millimeters. So after a few plug-ins and unplugs, you would find your battery lead was getting weak and start to wobble, and eventually it would just die. So I just keep those all connected, just some homemade leads there. Bought the connectors off of eBay. And then I also made some little leads to charge JST style once single cells. But it's a good charger. You can adjust the rate at which you're charging at, and you can do 4 at a time. So this is the one I use all the time, and I think if you're into brush quads like this, you should definitely get one of these too. They're $45-50. I'll find a link and put one down below. This is an F3 board in it, so we're going to be able to run Betaflight if you choose to. It comes with CleanFlight 1.13, and it comes pre-tuned. I took a look at the configuration, and they've already done some work on that. That wraps up kind of a review, and let's roll some flight footage and talk about it a bit. Outside now, just going to take off from the table, and a quick reminder that this is running the stock settings as the board comes with the vehicle. I didn't change anything. I didn't upgrade to Betaflight. I didn't tweak a single value in there. All I did was change the rates to what I like to fly. One of the first things we did right away, we saw the quick 180 turnarounds, and it handled it pretty okay. If you watched my last video, you saw the RCX brushed, and I was underwhelmed with the amount of thrust for as light as that vehicle was. And this one seems to have a little higher quality motors in it, and we seem to be able to pull off some maneuvers more quickly than we could with others, specifically, holding altitude when we're doing hard turns. We do a little punch out here and swoop down into the yard. And that punch out wasn't totally impressive, but the thing that we need to keep in mind is that it's not very warm on this particular day. You'll see here at the end of the flight, I'm wearing a light jacket, which is somewhat unusual for me. Growing up in a pretty cold and windy part of the country, I don't get cold very easy. But on this particular day, I think it's about 47 degrees, which, 2 weeks ago we were having low 80s. So the weather has changed dramatically. So the punch out that you saw earlier was probably impacted by the temperatures. The batteries and really any moving parts doesn't really like to be cold like that. They tend to respond a little differently when it's cooler out. Sweep through the swing set here, do a little close proximity. And the one thing I do like about this, and because it's a little bit larger than some others at 105 millimeters from motor to motor, it's fairly stable. Might be stuck now. No, we're not stuck. Just kind of maneuver out of there and get going. I don't recommend that you do that, because if you've got a prop up against something, it's not good for your motor. At least my understanding is it's not good for your motor. And that's one of the reasons why I don't fly in air mode on these brushed micros, is that if you go down, you've got to be really quick to hit your disarm switch so that those motors aren't spinning and rubbing up against something and locked up. It tends to shorten motor life, is my understanding. A lot of people fly with air mode on just fine. Just keep that in mind. When you go down, you want to disarm pretty quickly so those props stop. We're swooping through the yard pretty good. I like this flyer just fine. I think it's probably one of the better ones. I would put it in my top tier of the micros that I've flown here in the last 6 or 7 months. Specifically in the category of those that aren't of the inductor type, like the E101 and the Inductrix. And here in a little bit, I'll show you some rather poor flight footage of me trying to fly in rate mode in the house. Something I haven't been doing much of. Oh, here you can see where I'm wearing the coat, and I bring it in for a landing. All right, so now we're going to head into the house, and this won't impress you any.
but I wanted to give it a shot. I haven't been flying in the house in rate mode. I've been flying in horizon mode generally, using like the Blade Inductrix or the E101 with an FPV camera on the top of it. And I know that many others probably fly in rate mode all the time. Oh, reset. All right, here we go. It's one of those things I've got to get used to again. Last winter I was flying around in the house, and at that point in time, I was flying pretty low or tepid rates. My stick movements, I was really trying to refine my skills. And indoors, you know, there's all sorts of stuff to clip on, and you end up upsetting your vehicle pretty easily. But so I think I make probably 5 or 6 flights in the house, and some of them are relatively short because I keep banging into stuff, and you can see I get a little bit out of shape and have a hard time getting it back into shape and end up going down. But I want to include this footage because coming up here, you know, in my neck of the woods, oh, the cat, I knew he was coming, but I couldn't keep it upright, so I have to reset again. But here in the northern hemisphere, we've got winter setting in. It's pretty official. It's going to be getting cold in a good portion of many locations, and flying indoors is going to be one of the few options. I've seen people fly outside with snow on the ground. That's just not my cup of tea. I actually like all quads, and I would hate for them to go down, get shorted with a little bit of snow, and fry something, and then I've got a repair on my hands. Oh, look who comes to visit us. The cat. Get out of here. Okay, let's try again. Let's see if we can get out of there. Oh, we weren't bumped up against anything after all. I was going to go downstairs, but I forgot to turn on the lights. This is over my lunch break, and I just take a few moments after I grab a quick bite to eat and go for a flight. You know, well, in this particular case, I go for several flights, but that's something that I do. I don't live in a big city where I have to spend a lot of time on the road getting to and from work. So I come home many days and I eat a little something, and I grab a couple of batteries, and I fly around either in the backyard or in the house. And that's one of the things I love about this hobby, is that we can just fly really quickly if we've got a little bit of time, or maybe you've got a flying field or open space near your work where we can just, you know, go to the car, grab the bag, and go out and have some little bit of fun, de-stress a bit, and then head back in for the rest of the work day. See those 2 lamps right there? I like to go between those, but not in rate mode. I'm not quite there yet, at least not with this vehicle. Also like swooping under the chairs at the kitchen table, but I'm just not going to pull that off right today. Whoa, whoa. Oh, I guess that was a landing. I want another crash. Obviously, with these indoor flying, I keep banging into stuff. That's a pretty decent way, I guess, of testing the durability. This copter is still flying as of today, and no damage to the camera, no real damage to the antenna. Props are a little bit dinged up, but nothing that's not flyable. This is kind of my little main floor track. Just sometimes I do figure eights, sometimes I do close proximity, but it's good fun, and I want to include a little bit of this footage just so you know that you can fly inside too. And with these little brush micros, you really won't cause any harm to your furniture. Well, looks like we're good and stuck that time. Well, that's enough flight footage. I think you got the point.
Here we go. Eachine EX105 review complete. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the section down below. And I just noticed recently, between cuts doing some editing with this, that Banggood also has one of these boards that looks to be the same length that includes an OSD on it. It's not available yet, but if you're interested in looking for that, I'll put a link to that product down below. I'm excited to get one of those and give that a try. And thanks for watching.